It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
The first thing I would tell people if you're trying to figure out cash reserves, how do I prioritize this or do this? The first thing is let's get you to $1,000.
Sure.
Let's get you out of this stat. And also more importantly, it's going to make sure you have some type of liquidity in your life so that if the hot water breaks, if your car has can't start up in the morning, you have to go buy a new battery or other things, you got to have some flex in the system. So the $1,000 is kind of the baseline of where I want you to start your immediate needs. After that, I mean, Bo, where's the next place you would go after $1,000 of cash?
Well, what we'd like to see is once you have that kind of baseline, we want to make sure that if something unexpected were to happen, because that's kind of what we're talking about, is being in the world of unexpected outcomes. What happens if I have to go to the doctor and I need to pay an insurance deductible? Or what happens if I'm driving down, 65 South and something flies up and hits my car and I have to have a repair done, right? So what do I need to do to hit my auto deductible or my homeowner's deductible? You need to have enough cash to cover those baseline insurance deductibles so that at least you can do that so the insurance company can pitch in and start helping you pay for some of your bills.
And when you say insurance deductibles, you're talking, because you mentioned quite a few there.
Sure.
You're talking about property and casualty with your car, your house, but you're also talking about health insurance and things like that too, right?
That's exactly right. If you have to go to the hospital or you have to go see a doctor immediately, you want to make sure you have that baseline covered where you can hit those insurance deductibles.
Now, the next one is a little more aspirational, but I still think it's important, is kind of what you traditionally think about with cash reserves. 3 to 6 months. After you get through the insurance deductibles, we start talking about 3 to 6 months of living expenses is the next place I think that you ought to look at with your immediate cash needs.
So it's interesting. You said something right there, Brian, is that if the goal is 3 to 6 months of living expenses, it's probably pretty important that we know how much 1 month of living costs. So we probably ought to be tracking this, right?
Yeah, and as much as I hate telling people go budget and do all the nerdy spreadsheets and worksheets, and it is important that you have a baseline understanding of what is going out of your house on a monthly basis. Because if you don't know your free cash flow, what's left over or what should be left over, it kind of opens it up to where you can overspend.
Right.
And that's what you guys will notice a trend. We talk about forced scarcity a lot. Try to think about your cash planning in a way that you can create buckets of money that automatically get funded so that you are, even without creating a budget, you're hitting all the things that you need to. But getting back to 3 to 6 months of cash reserves, if you're trying to figure out, because you're younger, if you're listening to this, or if you're older, you're trying to figure out 3 to 6 months, it's really based upon your career. I mean, how long would it take you to go replace that income stream? And then it also is impacted, are you married? Are you a working household where both spouses are working? All these things will play into it, but 3 to 6 months is definitely something we should work to make sure you're bulletproof and have some excess in the system.
So let me ask you a question, Brian, because I know that right now, now interest rates are coming up a touch, but cash just isn't paying a whole lot. And I'm one of those people who I've been really good at paying off debt, and I've really got some decent equity built inside of my house. If I have a whole bunch of equity in my house, do I really need to keep that 3 to 6 months of cash reserves there?
I know why you asked this, because I think you like throwing a little salt on an old wound.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If you go back and listen to the 2006 podcast, guys, he's trying to humble me a little bit. It's because I used to brag about the fact that I kept pretty much zero cash because I had 6 figures of equity in my house back in Atlanta. So I felt like, who needs cash when I can stroke a check at any point in time if I, came across a great opportunity, or if I had the hot water heater go out, or if I had that car accident or medical needs, I would have it covered. Here's the problem with counting on that home equity. I got an email pretty quickly in the process from several listeners who said, I'm starting to get letters from my lender that they're freezing my home equity line. Realize, what is your cash reserves? What's the rainy day? There's a reason we call it a rainy day. It's usually when things aren't going perfect.
Right.
So if you are counting on this money to help you out when things aren't going good, they're probably going bad for a lot of people. So if next time we have a downturn, you might very well, if you're counting on your home equity, find that you come up short. Because guess what? The bank freezes your access to those funds. And that happened to a lot of our listeners. It happened to me. Sure. And I vowed to myself back in the 2008 through 2010, 11 housing collapse that never, ever would I get caught without liquidity. So I would definitely make sure that you keep straight up cash. The other thing is you kind of hinted at this, Bo, and it's kind of a celebration point. Forever, we've been trying to tell our listeners, try to get 1% on your money. Guess what? It is now a time that you can expect to make 1.1% on your cash reserves if you go to one of these high yield savings accounts. And, and hopefully there's going to be better opportunities coming down the pipe in the future. So, but it is kind of a breakthrough moment. Don't let that brick and mortar, I think I said border, but don't let that brick and mortar bank lock you in to no interest or less than 0.25% on something that really could help you build up, make that money work for you a little bit harder.
So I want to make sure if I'm hearing you correctly, Brian, right now in July of 2017, if I'm somebody when I have my emergency reserves at brick and mortar that's paying me, 0.2, 0.4%, I probably could. There are options out there where I can go get greater than 1%.
For sure. I mean, they're without a doubt, it's not hard. We don't like to do product endorsements, but you can go to bankrate.com or other things. It's very easy to see some banks that will give you a heck of a deal on those online savings, and they're FDIC. Here's the key point: make sure that they are FDIC insured, just to kind of make sure that their financial stability is built into the equation.